Good morning. Are you picking up the room?
You knew that one.
Thank you.
What was frustrating?
Are you gonna bring us back fudge?
We get,
I'm so sorry I said that.
If you,
Boy.
if you turn. I've turned this to green.
Sorry.
Good morning. We are calling this committee of the whole meeting to order. It is a lovely, although be it foggy in some parts of Berrien County morning. It's a pleasure to have everyone here. Little bit of housekeeping, reminder, turn off all electronic devices or silence them for the duration of our meeting. If you have materials for the Board of Commissioners, please give those to our Sergeant of Arms, who is Commissioner Jim Curran, and he'll make certain that those are distributed to the board appropriately. If you wish to address the board during public comment, please do so by going to the podium, stating your name, your jurisdiction, and then you'll have 2 minutes to speak on the topic you wish to do so on. With that, we'll do roll call.
Bell,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Freeling,
Here.
Harrison,
Here.
Pinkelman, LeJerick, Ott,
Here.
Pitchford, Ballrath,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough, Elliott. Madam Chair, you have 7 present, 5 absent.
We have a quorum. Thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the committee of the whole meeting minutes from July 20th. Everybody have a chance to review those, so I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Commissioner Werfel, support Commissioner Harrison. Any further discussion on those items? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All right, minutes are approved. Requisition review.
Good morning. So in my email I sent out yesterday, the requisition has an item on there that requires a waiver through, that's going to go to finance this morning. However, I've since had a conversation with Jim, so we may have to do a little bit more work on that this morning in admin as well as in finance. But the idea would be that at the BOC meeting, I will come back again and we'll kind of let you know where that landed, and I'll have a document for you to sign at that time. Is there questions about any of the other requisitions that were on the list? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Hearing none, we will revisit that during the 10:30 after questions have been answered. So, all right, with that being said, we now come to the point of our agenda for our scheduled presentation, which is the annual audit being presented by Raymond Robson and Nate. Good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning. Very well. And there is a lot of fog out there.
There is a lot of fog out there for sure.
Tell you from the drive over. So want to thank you this morning for your time. Today, I just plan on briefly going over the results of the audit for this year. Want to start by thanking Brian, Doug, and the whole finance and all the departments at the county that once again made this audit go smoothly. In terms of the overall results for the audit this year, we did issue on June 27th the financial statements. We issue several documents, including separate reports for different parts of the audit. The main financial statements are 171 pages. I'm not going to read those or peruse through them. Would entertain any questions that you do have, but the highlight of that for this year is that we did issue an unmodified, or what's considered to be a clean opinion, which basically means you can rely on the information that's there. It's not absolute assurance that we give. We're not saying that everything's perfect, but it is all reasonably stated in all material respects in our opinion. The big change this year in standards that had to be implemented was for GASB 87 on leases. There was an undertaking this year to implement that standard, which basically changed the rules. Under the old rules, anytime you had a lease, you had to evaluate whether it was capital and would be recorded in the books, or what would be called an operating lease, that was only a footnote disclosure. Basically combined all those things. Those are all now recorded in the financial statements, both on the side of whether you're a lessor or a lessee. You had to record those items on your books. So that was the undertaking for this year. This next year, what we will be looking at is what's called GASB 96 on subscription-based information technology arrangements, also known as SPIDA or SPIDA. I've heard some people say that because I think they think SPIDA is too close to other words. But that's what we will be working with the team and trying to implement this next year. As a part of the audit, we also issued the Single Audit Act Compliance Report. This separate report details, includes within it and details the results of our audit from a financial reporting side. We're reporting on the internal controls over financial reporting. And then we are also reporting on what's the single audit, your federal awards audit for looking at different programs of the county that have the federal dollars, whether it's passed through the state or received directly from the feds. So from a financial reporting standpoint this year, we did have 4 different findings during the year that are detailed in that report starting on page 18. The first finding was related to a restatement of net position in the Drain Commission. This was related to how basically how special assessments were recorded and the process for which that goes and the determination of when a special assessment gets recorded on the books. In looking back and as we were looking and auditing year-end numbers and also in what was put together, and it was actually something that the finance team had actually discovered on their own, that there had been an error in how it was being presented. Basically, it hadn't been in previous year, there were items where it was known that it would be assessed, but it hadn't actually been assessed yet and had been recorded at that point in time. This brings it back to when actually the assessment is happening and putting in is reflected. So the corrections were made. So what's in the financial statements are correct, but because it was an adjustment that had to be made, and under standards, it's required to be reported as a finding. Finding 2 is related to the procurement. We've talked this for a number of years. There is a policy that had been put in place. However, it wasn't put in place until after the end of the fiscal year. We did review that with the Drain Commissioner as well as finance, reviewed what the policy was, and assuming that policy is followed and we're able to see that happen in the next year, I would anticipate this finding will go away in fiscal year 23. Again, it'll be subject to our testing next year, but that's what we anticipate based on our review of things. The third finding was related to roads inventory. That was another repeat finding. It's something that has been on the top of finance's mind. We know that they've been working on it. Looking at it, I was actually talking to our manager on the job yesterday and just saying, with our experience, with everything that we've seen, that the improvements that have been made, it does feel like it's the finding that should be able to get resolved. But there's a lot that goes into that inventory process, and we'll look at it again next year as well. And then the final finding was related to some other audit adjustments. Again, under standards, if we detect something during our audit, we have to, and there's an adjustments that it's necessary, we have to evaluate the significance of that item. If it was determined that the change was made because of something that we found, then we have to report a finding for that. There were some items that we deemed to be significant, not material, that were reported. they were AP items that were just accounts payable items that were just missed at year end. Again, it's something that we had to report. The financial statements are correct. All the corrections were made. But that was included as a finding. Again, we don't anticipate that being there again. You can see on each of these findings, the viewer responsibilities or their corrective actions that are going to be taken. And again, we've looked at those. We don't opine on the corrective actions, but all of the corrective actions that have been included seem appropriate and hopefully will correct those items going forward. And then the last letter that I will point out is our independent auditors communication with those charged with governance. It's actually in letter form. That letter just details all the different requirements that we have under standards to report to you. So we put it in writing to make sure we cover everything. One of the things that we note in here is significant risks that are identified. I point that out just to say that that item is relatively new. I think last year was the first year we had to include that. That was a change in standards. But the items that are included in all of our audits, and it's related to revenue recognition, because basically standards say that that's a high risk and will be a significant risk. And then the other item is management override of internal controls. That's always a risk that we have to look at as auditors, because when management starts, if management does override controls, that is a significant risk of misstatement, because internal controls are only as good as what's in operation, what's actually happening. So nothing unusual or different here than anywhere else, but I just wanted to point that out as well. So with that, I would entertain any questions that you might have for us. I do plan on meeting with finance as well this morning to go over things in more detail.
Are there any questions related to the report we've received from Freeman Robson? Are there any questions related to the audit and to Nate regarding the documents that you've had a chance to review? Bless you. At this time, any questions? As Nate stated, he will be coming up. We'll be doing a little deeper dive for finance to kind of discuss some of the nuances within the audit. Maybe talk about some of recommendations going forward so we can continue to work with financial services and those departments and elected who had some of the findings that you've discussed this morning, that we can work through those and find ways to make certain that those aren't on there any longer. No questions? It was enlightening reading. Well, we really do appreciate the work that you have done. I can't remember how many years we have had a working relationship with your firm, and we appreciate the work and the back and forth. And I know that Doug and his team have expressed just the way that the effectiveness that you work and the efficiency when you come in here and just working with our team here. So thank you for that. And we'll see you up in finance for sure.
Thank you.
I should have asked Brian if he had any questions too, because I know he's doing it virtually. Brian, did you have any questions or comments?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you again. Appreciate it. All right, with that having been completed on our agenda, this now comes to the point of public comments. So if there are any comments that anyone wishes to make, they can go to the podium and do so.
Actually, excuse me.
Yeah.
Can I just add, so Mark is gonna come to admin to talk about the sweeper that's on the rec list. So I guess I would ask finance to wait.
Hold on.
And after we get their decision, I'll have him come to finance to tell you what happened.
That would be perfect.
Thank you.
And that would be Commissioner Yarbrough, there were some questions on the requisition list for today, so we've held off taking action until 10:30 because there is a request for a sweeper from the road department, and Commissioner Kern had some questions related to it. I do believe we're considering that as a waiver option in finance, so I'm not sure what the order is in our a sweeper, but I'm not sure if we have, I believe we have the audit before we even do any of our other business. So that should give staff time to get the answers and have the conversation with admin that's needed. So, all right, if there are no public comments, we have no other business that I know of. Brian, any other business?
No, that's it. I would just point out the good work by Doug and his team and working with the auditor to get this thing wrapped up, get it wrapped up on time, and work over the last 12 months to satisfy some of the prior audit findings.
Yes, absolutely. All right, with that having been said, there's no other business. We get to finish up committee of the whole a little early. You may go to your parent committees. We see and adjourn.